Why do you feel tired all the time today? You get a good 7 hours of sleep at night, but still, in the morning that alarm goes off, and you just don't want to leave your bed. It feels like there's simply no energy to get up. Then comes the afternoon slump, that heavy wave of sleepiness. And when you're trying to work or study, your mind wanders. You feel disconnected, like you're just not interested. Whether it's your career goals or your studies, you know exactly what you need to do to achieve them. But the moment you think about taking action, that feeling hits, you're tired, you put it off. Well, let me tell you, these experiences are absolutely not yours alone. In fact, there's a very big silent epidemic spreading. And the scary part is, most people aren't even aware of it. We're all struggling with this constant tiredness and lack of energy. And the reason we can't seem to fix it is because we're not truly understanding the root cause. Where is this problem even coming from in the first place? So I have to ask, on such a massive scale, especially in today's modern age, with all the mental health awareness, what is going on? Where have we gone wrong? Well, honestly speaking, we have gone completely astray. So many people are suffering from this problem on a daily basis, yet they can't get to the core of it and eliminate it. And that's why, my friends, I urge you to watch this video until the very end, because after today, your life can be completely back in your control. Instead of feeling tired, you'll consistently feel energetic. And by giving your 100% in your work, studies, and social life, you'll start becoming super successful. And this isn't some kind of magic trick, it's pure science. So let's get straight to the point. What exactly is tiredness? Now, understand this very carefully. Many people make a mistake in grasping this. Tiredness is a psychological state, not a physical one. Think about it. No matter how many calories you've consumed, how much rest you've had, how many energy drinks you've downed, it has nothing to do with your physical energy reserves. You can still feel incredibly tired. This is a psychological state. There's a specific kind of chemical imbalance happening in your brain. Let me explain. See, our brain has been shaped by millions upon millions of years of evolution, and way back then, when we lived in the forests, resources were incredibly scarce. And in such an environment, where animals literally died from hunger and thirst, it was absolutely crucial for us to use our body's energy resources very, very carefully. And for humans, having a large brain meant expending even more calories. Despite making up only about 2% of our body mass, our brain consumes a whopping 20% of our total energy. Now, you might be surprised to hear this. According to Stanford professor of neuroscience Robert Sapolsky, a chess grandmaster can burn up to 6,000 calories in a single day of a tournament. Just for comparison, running for an hour only burns around 700 calories. So it was crystal clear that in those ancient times, due to the scarcity of food and resources, the brain had to develop an energy conservation mechanism. This mechanism ensured that we spent our body's energy very sparingly, only on tasks that the brain deemed absolutely necessary. And it's precisely because of this need that the emotion of tiredness was born. According to the Central Governor Model of Neuroscience, published in 2012, tiredness is fundamentally a feeling that makes you perceive that taking a particular action or putting in effort is simply not worth it. It makes you feel like that action will only lead to a waste of your precious energy. This is an ancient psychological loophole that has persisted to this day, constantly influencing us to use our energy extremely cautiously, only for tasks that the brain perceives as essential. Basically, according to another piece of research published in 2016, this can be seen as a kind of cost-benefit analysis that our brain performs before any task, determining our motivation level. Before we even initiate an action, our brain is weighing it on an internal scale. How much energy will this task require, and what reward will I get in return? And here's the key. What exactly is the reward for the brain? Well, it's those neurochemicals that make us feel good, dopamine and serotonin. And the brain's ultimate goal is quite simple, to achieve the maximum reward with the minimum amount of effort, because it was this very psychology that helped us survive in the ancient world. But today, this is where the biggest trap of our modern era comes in. In today's world, this very loophole in our brain is being used against us, and it's happening to such an extent that an entire generation of sluggish individuals is being created. And no, I am absolutely not exaggerating. Look, you've already grasped a fundamental first principle of our brain. Achieve the highest reward with the least amount of effort. Now, let's understand what I'm talking about with a simple example. Our brain primarily gives us feelings of happiness, motivation, and energy through the dopamine hormone. You can essentially think of dopamine as the brain's currency. If dopamine is secreted, or if the brain anticipates the secretion of dopamine by performing a certain task, then it will provide the body with the necessary energy and motivation to carry out that action. You'll suddenly feel enthusiastic and driven to complete that task. Now, put yourself in the context of today's world. Today, you're mostly juggling between just two types of actions: constructive or healthy actions, and unnatural or risky actions. Constructive actions are essentially those kinds of tasks that you know will benefit you greatly in the long run, for your life, your health, and your long-term happiness. These actions include things like, for a student, studying daily to achieve top marks; for an employee, upgrading their skills; for an athlete, consistently following a rigorous training routine. Then you have these unnatural and risky actions. These are the ones that our modern world has made incredibly easy and instantly gratifying. Think about endlessly scrolling through entertaining reels, constantly checking social media notifications, binge-watching movies or series. These are low-effort, high-reward activities. For example, your brain can produce, let's say, 10 units of dopamine just from 30 minutes of mindlessly swiping on your phone. Points out the core issue. Now, this is where we arrive at the real root of tiredness. See, in today's world, there's a constant battle raging within the brain of the average person. On one side, you have the effortful, constructive work that will build your life and provide long-term happiness, but it demands significant effort and releases relatively little dopamine, maybe just 10 units after 8 hours of work, and even that's in a delayed manner. And on the other side, you have those 30 minutes of finger swiping, which trigger a rapid release of dopamine, starting within the very first minute. Now, in the language of the brain, it's very simple. Think about it this way. Wherever there's less effort involved and a high potential reward, action will almost always follow. It's a fundamental principle. And this is precisely why that energy conservation loophole in our brain gets instantly kickstarted. The brain's logic is, why exert more energy if I can get the same currency, in this case dopamine, with minimal effort? And as a direct consequence, the brain starts making us feel tired just at the very thought of having to put in extra effort. You know, it's really simple when you break it down. If I can get the same reward, that same feeling of pleasure and satisfaction, by doing less work, then what's the inherent need for me to push myself to do more? This, my friends, is what's medically referred to as dopamine desensitization, and the modern, often unregulated, lifestyle that many of us lead today is the single biggest contributing factor to this phenomenon. Now, what are the exact solutions to this? We are absolutely going to delve into that in detail very soon. But this is a science channel, and I'm certainly not going to leave you without providing a solid scientific understanding of what's going on under the hood. And let's be honest, if you don't truly understand the root of the problem, you're going to find it incredibly difficult to bring about any lasting change. And that's why, right now, I'm going to explain to you, exactly at a neurological level, what's happening inside your brain, and how this very subtle process is silently chipping away at your motivation. So this is really interesting. The development of our brain actually occurred from the back towards the front. Think about it, starting from the spinal cord, the brain regions located at the back. These are the most ancient parts of our brain. These are the same brain structures that were present in our ancient animal ancestors. This older part of the brain is called the limbic system. So picture this. Within the limbic system lies the fundamental coding for all our primal, animalistic behaviors. When we feel hunger, there's an immediate drive to seek out and consume food. The basic urges for mating and reproduction originate from this system. And even our fundamental fight or flight response, that instinctual reaction to danger, is orchestrated by the limbic brain. And dopamine was absolutely essential to trigger all of these fundamental reactions. So it makes sense that dopamine production also primarily occurs in the hypothalamus, which again, is an integral part of the limbic system. Now, what is that part of our brain that truly makes us human, that sets us apart? This part is also the most recent addition in the evolutionary history of our brain. Well, it's located right within our forehead, the prefrontal cortex, or PFC. This highly sophisticated region only developed in more advanced mammals and our primate ancestors. And today, after countless research studies, complex simulations, and in-depth investigations, we have come to a profound understanding. Our prefrontal cortex, or PFC, is what fundamentally makes us human. It's the center for language, words, logic, understanding emotions, processing them, experiencing empathy, envisioning the future, and planning for that future. All of this is the responsibility of the prefrontal cortex, and this very part of our brain is what makes us an intelligent, rational, and socially cooperative species capable of collective progress. Without it, our limbic system would take complete control, operating solely on animalistic instincts. You might recall a fascinating case, the story of Phineas Gage, a railway worker who had a metal rod pierced through the front part of his head. His behavior underwent a drastic transformation. He lost his self-control and started behaving in a very primal, animalistic way. So the brain circuit is incredibly straightforward. Let's understand it with the help of this simple animation. There are three main parts involved in deciding your behavior or your motivation to take action: the limbic system, the prefrontal cortex, and the insula, which acts as a decision-making hub. It explains the interaction between these parts. Now, what typically happens is that the insula constantly receives signals from two sources: the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex. It then has to process both these signals and make a decision about what action to take. Here, the prefrontal cortex is the rational part. It understands what actions are truly beneficial for you, but the limbic system, on the other hand, is more impulsive and less discerning. You know that saying, the heart is a child? Well, it's not actually the heart, it's this limbic system. It wants everything. It wants it now, and it wants it with minimal effort. That's why it's impulsive and driven by instinct. However, because the limbic system is the oldest part of the brain, it's naturally more dominant. This means that if the prefrontal cortex or the insula, for example, isn't functioning optimally, the brain will default to the limbic system's urges. This was demonstrated in the Cambridge Gamble Task experiment, which showed that individuals with damage to their prefrontal cortex or insula became more impulsive and engaged in riskier gambling behavior. Now, when we become excessively involved in activities that provide us with excessive short-term gratification, like those entertaining reels, social media, and movie streaming, something interesting happens. The connection and feedback between the prefrontal cortex and the anterior insula start to weaken. As a result, the limbic system begins to exert more influence over the insula, making you more impulsive. You start engaging in low-effort, high-reward activities without much thought, and this pattern intensifies over time. Because in the world of neurons, there's a simple rule. Neurons that fire together wire together. And therefore, if this cycle repeats itself consistently over a long period, you'll essentially become an impulsive personality by default, with significantly weakened self-control and a lack of interest in work. Just thinking about work will make you feel tired, and even the smallest things will start to distract you. But here's the good news. The connection between the insula and the prefrontal cortex is reciprocal, meaning information flows in both directions. The insula can influence the prefrontal cortex, and the prefrontal cortex, by providing a calculated, logical perspective, can influence your subjective feelings within the insula. The connection between the prefrontal cortex and the insula becomes stronger by saying no, literally by saying no to activities that offer short-term gratification. You know you need to work, but your fingers are itching to open Instagram? Saying no. You don't feel like going for that morning workout? Saying no and get yourself to the gym. Say no to those tempting junk food cravings. The more you resist the urges of your impulsive limbic system, the stronger the connection between your prefrontal cortex and insula becomes. The more you'll start to escape the trap of dopamine desensitization. You'll begin to find enjoyment in constructive activities, your studies, your job, skill development. Your willpower will also strengthen, and you'll start living a more disciplined life, all of which will contribute to your overall long-term happiness. The strength model of willpower also supports this idea, suggesting that willpower is like a muscle that needs to be trained daily by saying no to negative impulses and actually following through with your intentions. And everything I'm saying is backed by research. All the references are available in the description below. Think about how often it happens that we get used to eating spicy food from outside, and then home-cooked food doesn't taste as good. Or, if we're accustomed to drinking cold water, warm water feels difficult to swallow. But when we start saying no to those unhealthy habits, and begin eating home-cooked meals and drinking warm water, we start to appreciate their taste as well. And these habits are ultimately constructive for our long-term health. And this is the fundamental solution to combat dopamine desensitization, to inject enthusiasm and energy into the tasks that currently feel boring, meaningless, and tiring to you. So now that we have a solid understanding of tiredness and the neuroscience behind it, let's move on to the main part of the video: how we can eliminate this problem of tiredness from its very root. How can we feel motivated, energetic, and happy most of the time in our lives? Look, if you chronically feel tired, you essentially need to focus fundamentally on just two things: your mindset, and your actions or behavior. Combining these two will create your lifestyle, and that's where your improvement will begin. Let's understand how. See, according to psychology, lasting change in your behavior can never happen until you shift your mindset. Mindset is literally 80% of any transformation. Even to overcome the most severe addictions, the primary focus has to be on the mindset, because your behavior is simply a reflection of how you identify yourself in your mindset. Identifies a major modern problem. Now, what's the biggest problem in today's world, you know? It's that most people's lives lack a clear purpose or direction, and they don't even understand the basic human needs that are essential for a person to be happy in their life. As a result, they lack a strong philosophical grounding. They don't have a deeply rooted philosophy of life that keeps them disciplined, grounded, and guided. They just pick up bits and pieces from social media, set a direction for their lives based on that, and then keep changing it. So when you're not even connected to your true self, when you lack clarity about your life's direction, where will the motivation come from to walk on any particular path? So the first step is to create a purpose for your life. A purpose that fulfills all your fundamental human needs and creates a positive impact in the world, whatever those basic human needs may be. Now, if we talk about human needs, they are diverse. Basic biological needs like food, clothing, and shelter, social and romantic needs, and the needs for growth, and to create a significant positive impact through your own abilities. Look, according to me, there's no need to focus on 100 different things. Just create one core philosophy for your life, focus with laser-like precision on that one most important need, and all the other needs will naturally fall into place. And that core philosophy is a commitment to a lifelong growth mindset. The other name for life itself is growth, because the only real difference between a living organism and a dead body is the presence or absence of growth. And it's exactly the same in life. You're either growing or you're dying. There's no in-between state. So you absolutely must have a hardcore growth and self-excellence mindset, because apart from this, there is no other fundamental truth of life. Everything else is just a distracting illusion. Now, once you've committed to this philosophy, gradually start taking actions in your life that align with it. See, growth isn't a one-day task, and it's certainly not something that ever stops. It's a lifelong activity. If it were any different, all the billionaires would have stopped working. But it's this very need for growth that keeps even billionaires driven. So imagine how powerful this need truly is. And therefore, make it your first priority to completely create your life and lifestyle around this mindset. Now comes solution step number 2, the crucial role of actions. See, once again, what is our ultimate goal here? It's to live an energetic, motivated, and genuinely happy life, right? So understand this. In life, habits are formed by consistently performing any action, and it's from these many habits that our overall lifestyle is created. And here's the powerful part. These very habits and lifestyle, in turn, reinforce our mindset. It's a continuous cycle. Your mindset shapes your lifestyle, and your lifestyle, in turn, shapes your mindset. It's a powerful two-way feedback loop. So the very first thing you need to do is to clearly define your objective goals in life. And these goals can span across different domains of your life. For example, in your career, you might set a goal to achieve XYZ this year. In your health, it could be to lose 10 kilos, get into better shape, and even build some muscle. In your social life, you might aim to stop spending time with negative influences and start connecting with more positive people. And in terms of learning and development, you could set a goal to finish 5 growth-focused books in your area of interest, or to learn a specific high-value skill. Having these kinds of objective goals is incredibly important because they provide a clear direction for your life. Look, whether you ultimately achieve every single goal is a separate matter, but simply having the right direction in life is already 80% of the battle. It doesn't matter if you progress slowly or quickly. If you're on the right path towards your destination, you will eventually get there without getting lost along the way. Number 2, the next crucial step is to create a detailed plan of action to reach those goals. And this plan of action will translate into your daily habits. Think about it. Waking up in the morning and immediately getting your workout in, dedicating an hour in the afternoon to work on your skills, reading enriching books before going to bed at night, practicing daily journaling. These are just examples. Your specific plan of action should consist of step-by-step actions that directly align with your goals, because these are the actions that will ultimately help you achieve them. Now comes the next step, which is arguably the most challenging, because now you will literally have to make sacrifices and consciously replace your unhealthy habits with positive ones. I mean, let's say your plan of action requires you to wake up early and go for a workout, but you're accustomed to sleeping in late and enjoying a leisurely morning. Or perhaps you need to switch to a healthier diet, but you're addicted to the instant gratification of tasty junk food. Making these small positive changes initially is going to be the most challenging and might even feel a little painful. But to overcome these challenges more easily, I want to recommend a simple yet powerful strategy that has personally helped me a lot in developing good habits. See, for this, let me briefly explain a key aspect of the science of motivation. We often mistakenly believe that we need to feel motivated before we can start working. And that's why we often find ourselves waiting for that elusive spark of motivation to appear. But the truth is, motivation actually comes from taking action. Motivation is created by the act of doing, not just by sitting around and waiting. And this is a scientifically proven fact. Dopamine, that key neurotransmitter we talked about, is released when you take action. There's even an entire book dedicated to this concept, called The Motivation Myth. It's a highly scientific and insightful book, and I'll be sure to put a link to it in the description below. I highly recommend checking it out. So fundamentally, you need to start by creating some pillar habits in your life. These are the foundational habits upon which literally other good habits can be easily built and stacked. In other words, if you establish these core pillar habits, your entire day can flow much more smoothly and productively. For me personally, an early morning workout has been incredibly effective as a pillar habit. Whenever I start my day with an early morning workout, I automatically program my mindset right from the beginning to seek dopamine and serotonin through effort and accomplishment, rather than relying on cheap and lazy sources. This sets a positive momentum for the entire day. Now, after that initial pillar habit, I don't spend the rest of my day reactively chasing cheap dopamine hits. And because I've already resensitized my dopamine receptors by engaging in hard work first thing in the morning, I actually start to enjoy even the more routine tasks. Then, when I sit down to work, I make it a point to tackle the hardest task of the day first. This way, the biggest burden of the day is cleared in the first half, creating a super positive momentum that carries me through the rest of the day. Now, alongside these work-related pillar habits, I also have a strong dietary routine set as pillar habits. This includes eating healthy, whole foods, which helps me steer clear of those cheap dopamine sources and keeps me focused and energized throughout the day. See, the thing is, even if you're consciously trying to focus on your work and minimize distractions from social media, if you're constantly consuming junk food, it will still contribute to dopamine desensitization, and the negative effects of this will manifest as tiredness and restlessness in your work. So you literally have to plan your life and lifestyle in this way, consciously depending on constructive sources of dopamine for the majority of your life and making it a routine. Look, cheat days and cheat meals are perfectly okay and sometimes even necessary. After all, variety and variation are also fundamental human needs in life. But the key is to always come back to your established routine, to spend the majority of your life following these healthy routines. Trust me on this, not only will you feel significantly more energetic, but you will also start making real progress in your life, achieving all your goals with joy and enthusiasm. Alright, finally friends, meditation and yoga are incredibly scientific solutions to this problem of chronic tiredness, because they essentially work to recondition and normalize those saturated dopamine receptors, develop your patience and self-control, and help you cultivate a deeper understanding of your inner self. They retrain your brain to find satisfaction in healthy levels of dopamine. And according to a 2002 research study, meditation can actually increase internal dopamine production by as much as 60%, which keeps you feeling charged up throughout the day. Okay, and throughout this entire process, journaling is going to be incredibly helpful for you. I'm curious, do you have the habit of documenting your thoughts, your feelings, and your learnings in a book? Doing so fosters self-awareness, self-knowledge, and helps you track what's working in your life and what's helping you move forward. It also makes you more mindful, and with greater clarity and a clear direction, you'll naturally feel more motivated, optimistic, and enthusiastic about your life. So, all in all guys, there can be many more creative solutions to eliminate this problem of tiredness from its root. But at the end of the day, you just need to focus on those two fundamental pillars, mindset and action. And within a short period, you will start to see positive changes unfold in your life. I guarantee that. One last small tip that we often don't realize, but our social circle has the most profound impact on us. Whether you believe it or not, you can never truly maintain a positive mindset while consistently surrounded by negative influences, no matter how hard you try. And in life, letting go of bad company, making that sacrifice, is the first and most important sacrifice that will open the doors to your success and a good life. This is what happened in my own life. Personally, in my case, when I realized I had no good, positive-minded friends left, I simply left the group and made books my friends. After all, a book is a man's best friend, and this made a huge impact in my life. Negativity out, positivity and knowledge in. Mindset changed, worldview changed, and you need to experience this transformation too. Look, now that you understand the science behind this tiredness and lack of motivation, take direct action to eliminate it from its roots. Don't just put a temporary bandage on it. And please consider subscribing to the channel. Just hit that subscribe button down below. And don't forget to click the notification bell so you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. Also, if you think this video could help someone you know, please share it with your friends and family. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your support, and I'll see you in the next video.